The massive Galactic Council chamber stretched out like a giant arena. Thousands of alien delegates filled the curved seats that rose up toward the crystal dome ceiling. At the very bottom, in the smallest section, sat the human delegation. Ambassador. Jake Morrison looked around at all the strange faces staring down at him. Some had scales, others had fur, and many had eyes that glowed in colors he had never seen before. Jake had been Earth's representative for 3 long years. 3 years of watching aliens treat humans like stupid children who had somehow learned to fly spaceships. The other species laughed at human technology. They called human culture primitive. They spoke about humans like they were pets that had learned a new trick. The worst part was how they always voted against anything humans wanted. Today was no different. The humans had found a new space route called the Kepler Corridor. They had spent months mapping every dangerous spot and testing safe paths through it. Now they wanted permission to use it for trade. Prime Minister Kelvox of the Xanthari stood at the main podium. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to shine under the chamber lights. His voice boomed across the room as he spoke. "The human request is denied," Kelvox announced. "We cannot allow such an important trade route to be controlled by an inexperienced species. The Kepler Corridor will be managed by the Hegemony Corporation." Jake felt his jaw tighten. The Hegemony Corporation was owned by Xanthari businessmen. The aliens were stealing the route that humans had discovered and giving it to themselves. Senator Zelith from the Vorthan Republic nodded in agreement. Her 4 arms moved in complex patterns as she spoke. Humans lack the wisdom needed for such responsibility. Perhaps in a few hundred years, when they have grown beyond their violent nature, we can discuss this again. The chamber filled with sounds that Jake had learned were alien laughter. Clicks, whistles, and deep rumbling noises echoed off the walls. They were all laughing at humanity. Captain Lisa Hayes sat in the viewing section above. She was Jake's military advisor and had been watching these meetings for months. Lisa could see the anger building in Jake's face. She knew this day would come eventually. Jake stood up slowly from his chair. The laughter in the chamber began to fade as delegates noticed the human ambassador getting to his feet. He gathered his papers and data tablets with careful, precise movements. The entire chamber went quiet. Jake walked to the small podium reserved for minor species. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. When he reached the microphone, he looked up at the thousands of alien faces watching him. "Honored delegates," Jake began, his voice calm but carrying clearly through the chamber's sound system. "I have an announcement to make." Kelvox waved one of his long arms dismissively. "Human Morrison, the session is concluded. Your request has been denied. Please return to your seat." Jake ignored him and continued speaking. "For 3 years, humanity has tried to work within this council. We have followed your rules. We have accepted your decisions. We have tried to prove ourselves worthy of your respect." Murmurs started to spread through the alien delegates. This was not how these meetings usually went. "Today, you have made your position clear," Jake continued. "You took something we discovered and gave it to yourselves. You call us primitive while taking our work. You treat us like children while benefiting from our efforts." Senator Zelith's eyes began to glow brighter. "Human Morrison, you are out of order. Sit down immediately." Jake smiled for the first time in months. "No, Senator. I will not sit down. Instead, I am here to inform this council that humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council, effective immediately." The chamber erupted. Aliens began making loud noises in dozens of different languages. Some stood up from their seats. Others activated their communication devices to send urgent messages. Kelvox slammed his ceremonial staff against the podium. "Order, order. Human Morrison, you cannot simply leave the council." "Actually, we can," Jake replied calmly. "According to Section 12 of the Galactic Charter, any member species can withdraw with proper notice. Consider this our notice." "Lisa." Hayes stood up in the viewing section. She had been waiting for this moment. She activated her communicator and spoke into it. "Code 7 is active. Repeat, Code 7 is active." Across the galaxy, humans working in alien facilities, on alien ships and in alien research centers all received the same message. The withdrawal had begun. Jake looked around the chamber one more time. For 3 years you have told us we are not good enough to be your equals. Today we have decided to stop trying to convince you otherwise. He gathered his papers and walked toward the exit. The chamber remained in chaos as aliens argued and shouted. Some were angry, others seemed confused. A few looked worried, though Jake could not tell why. As Jake reached the chamber doors, Kelvox's voice boomed over the noise. You will regret this decision, Human Morrison. Without the Council's protection, your species will not survive in this galaxy. Jake paused at the doorway and turned back. Prime Minister Kelvox, I think you have that backwards. I think you will be the ones with regrets. The doors closed behind him as he left the chamber for the last time. Lisa Hayes met him in the corridor outside. All human personnel have received the withdrawal order, she reported. Phase 1 is beginning across all systems. Jake nodded. Good. It's time they learned what humanity really brings to this galaxy. What the aliens in that chamber did not know was that humans had been quietly preparing for this day for over a year. They had no idea how much their advanced civilization depended on human innovation, human maintenance, and human problem-solving skills. They were about to find out. Commander Ryan Blake sat in the control room of the human space station Vigilance. The station orbited quietly in neutral space, far from any alien worlds. Ryan stared at his computer screens, watching green dots that represented alien ships, all across the galaxy. Over the past 6 hours, something strange was happening to those ships. Commander, called out Sergeant Mike Torres from his workstation. We're getting reports from the Xanthari sector. 3 of their cargo ships just lost navigation control. Ryan nodded but said nothing. He had been expecting this. When Ambassador Morrison walked out of the Galactic Council, he had sent a coded message to every human in the galaxy. The message was simple: come home. But it meant much more than just returning to Earth. For 3 years, while the aliens laughed at human technology, humans had been working quietly throughout the galaxy. Dr. Amy Carter and her team had been the busiest. Amy was a computer expert who could make any alien system work better. The aliens always asked for her help because she could fix problems that their own engineers could not solve. Amy had worked on Xanthari communication systems. She had improved Vorthan trade computers. She had made Draknari military systems faster and more accurate. Every time she helped them, the aliens acted like they were doing her a favor by letting her work on their advanced technology. What the aliens did not know was that Amy always left a little piece of human code in every system she touched. Hidden deep in the programming where alien engineers never looked, the code was harmless as long as humans remained part of the galactic community. But if humans ever left... Sir, Sergeant Torres called out again. The Xanthari are sending emergency signals. Their main trade station is having life support problems. They're asking for help. Ryan looked at the message on his screen. The Xanthari Prime Minister Kelvox himself was asking for human assistance, the same alien who had called humans primitive just hours ago. Send a reply, Ryan ordered. Tell them we're sorry, but humans are no longer part of the Galactic Council. We cannot interfere in alien affairs. Lieutenant Sarah Kim looked up from her station. Commander, we're getting similar messages from Vorthan space. Their banking systems are crashing. They can't process any trade payments. Ryan walked over to the main display screen. It showed a map of the entire galaxy with thousands of small lights representing different alien facilities. As he watched, more and more lights began flashing red. Each red light meant another system failure. The truth was simple but devastating. Humans had become essential to galactic civilization without anyone realizing it. While aliens built impressive ships and powerful weapons, they often could not make their systems work efficiently. They always needed human engineers to solve their problems. Amy Carter had spent years traveling to alien worlds, fixing their computers, improving their networks, and making their technology actually work properly. Every system she touched became dependent on human programming. The aliens thought they were using Amy's skills, but really Amy was making them need humans. "Commander Blake," came a voice over the radio. It was Dr. Amy Carter herself, calling from the human research ship Discovery. "How are our galactic friends doing?" Ryan smiled. "Not very well, Doctor. Your little surprises are working perfectly." Amy laughed. "I tried to make their systems better. It's not my fault they never learned how to maintain what I built for them." The failures were spreading quickly across the galaxy. On Xanthari worlds, communication networks began shutting down. Ships could not talk to their home planets. Trade negotiations stopped in the middle of important deals. The Vorthan Republic was hit even harder. Their entire economic system depended on computer networks that Amy had redesigned 2 years ago. As the human code began to shut down, banks could not process transactions. Companies could not pay their workers. The stock market crashed in less than 4 hours. Admiral Ben Torres was aboard the human cruiser Defender when the first panic messages started arriving. Ben was the highest-ranking human military officer in space. He had been preparing for this day since the Council first started treating humans badly. "Admiral," reported Captain Lisa Hayes over the communication system, "the Draknari Empire is requesting immediate assistance. Their battle stations are losing power." Ben shook his head. "The Draknari called us soft and weak last month. Let them fix their own problems." The Draknari Empire prided itself on having the strongest military in the galaxy. Their battle stations were supposed to be impossible to defeat. But Amy Carter had worked on their power management system 6 months ago. She had made the stations 30% more efficient, which impressed the Draknari greatly. Now those same systems were failing. The stations could not maintain full power. Weapon systems were shutting down. Some stations were completely dark, floating helplessly in space. "Sir," Captain Hayes continued, "the Aquilian Federation is also calling for help. Their water treatment plants are failing on 12 different worlds." Ben sighed. The Aquilians were fish-like creatures who needed very clean water to survive. Human engineer Robert Stone had helped them build better water purification systems. Those systems were now breaking down and billions of Aquilian citizens were in danger. "What about the crystalline hive?" Ben asked. "Their mining operations have stopped completely," Hayes reported. "They can't extract minerals from their asteroid fields. The automated systems are all offline." Ben walked to the observation deck of his ship. He could see other human vessels in the distance, all heading toward the edge of known space. They were leaving this part of the galaxy behind. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans were primitive and worthless. They never realized that humans had quietly become the engineers who kept galactic civilization running. Every time an alien asked a human to fix something, they became a little more dependent on human knowledge. Now the humans were gone, and the aliens were discovering what their advanced civilization looked like without human help. "Admiral Torres," came an urgent message from Xanthari space. "This is Prime Minister Kelvox. We need immediate human assistance. Our situation is becoming critical." Ben looked at the message and deleted it without responding. The aliens would have to learn to solve their own problems now. The galaxy was about to become a much quieter place. Senator Zillith of the Vorthan Republic paced frantically in his private chambers as reports flooded in from across Vorthan space. Their economic networks were crashing. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades were now plagued with system failures. Worse, their military vessels were experiencing critical malfunctions in their targeting systems that used human-designed algorithms. The Hegemony Corporation, so eager to claim the Kepler corridor, found their new trade route worthless when their navigation computers failed, stranding 3 massive cargo fleets in deep space. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that they needed human rescue ships to retrieve their crews. Across the galaxy, the same pattern repeated. The Aquilian Federation's water purification systems failed on 12 worlds. The crystalline hive's mineral extraction operations ground to a halt when their human-built efficiency protocols corrupted. Even the mighty Draknari Empire found their supposedly impregnable battle stations going dark as human-maintained power systems failed one by one. Prime Minister Kelvox stood before an emergency council session, his usual arrogance replaced with barely concealed panic. The chamber, once filled with confident alien delegates, now buzzed with desperate whispers. "We must contact the humans immediately," declared Councillor Yethis of the Aquilian Federation. "Our water crisis alone affects 3 billion citizens." "Humans are clearly holding us hostage," snarled General Thorax of the Draknari. "This is an act of war." "With what?" Zilith snapped back. "Half our fleet can't even leave orbit. Their targeting systems are down, and our supply lines are failing." The terrible truth was becoming clear. In their arrogance, they had dismissed humanity while becoming utterly dependent on human ingenuity and expertise. The primitive species they had mocked had quietly become the backbone of galactic civilization. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the human colony ship New Horizon. Through the massive windows, he could see dozens of other human ships preparing to jump to unexplored space. After 5 days of chaos across the galaxy, humanity was finally ready to leave their old home behind. Captain Lisa Hayes entered the deck carrying a tablet filled with messages. "Jake, you need to see these," she said. "We've received over 3,000 emergency communications in the past 6 hours." Jake took the tablet and scrolled through the messages. Each one was more desperate than the last. Prime Minister Kelvox was offering to give humans control of 5 Xanthari star systems. Senator Zilith promised to make humans full partners in the Vorthan government. Emperor Thorax was even willing to share Draknari military secrets that had been guarded for centuries. "They're panicking," Jake observed. "Good." Dr. Amy Carter walked over from her workstation. She had been monitoring galactic news networks to see how badly alien civilizations were failing. The reports were worse than she had expected. "The Xanthari have declared martial law," Amy reported. "Their government is using military force to maintain order as more systems fail. 3 colonies have already declared independence because they can't communicate with the homeworld." Lisa nodded grimly. "The Vorthan Republic isn't doing much better. Their economy has shrunk by 60% in 5 days. Unemployment is at record levels because companies can't process payroll." Jake smiled, coldly. These were the same species that had spent 3 years calling humans primitive and stupid. Now they were begging for human help to save their failing civilizations. "What about the Aquilians?" Jake asked. Amy's expression became more serious. "They're in real trouble. 8 worlds are now completely without clean water. Billions of their people are getting sick. Some reports say they might start dying within a week." Jake felt a small pang of guilt. The Aquilians had been less insulting to humans than the others, but they had still voted against humanity in every council decision. They had made their choice. Admiral Ben Torres appeared on the main communication screen from his ship Defender. "Jake, I'm getting reports that alien ships are trying to track our fleet movements. They want to follow us to wherever we're going." "Can they track us?" Jake asked. Ben shook his head. "Not without human navigation technology. Their tracking systems are failing just like everything else, but they're trying to send scout ships in every direction." Jake turned back to look at the stars. In a few hours, the human fleet would make its final jump to the galactic rim. They would establish new colonies far from alien space and build their own civilization. A civilization where humans would never again be treated as inferior. Suddenly, the communication system activated with an urgent priority signal. The image that appeared was Prime Minister Kelvox himself, looking haggard and exhausted. His usually perfect silver skin was dull, and his eyes showed desperation. "Ambassador Morrison," Kelvox began, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. "I am speaking to you not as a galactic leader, but as someone whose people are suffering. Please, I beg you to reconsider your withdrawal." Jake studied the alien who had called humans barbaric just 5 days ago. "Prime Minister Kelvox, you look tired." "Our situation is critical," Kelvox continued. "Food distribution has collapsed. Medical systems are failing. Our people are scared and confused. We need human expertise to restore order." "That's unfortunate," Jake replied calmly. "But humans are no longer part of the Galactic Council. We cannot interfere in alien affairs." Kelvox's desperation became more obvious. "We were wrong about your species, we see that now. Humans possess knowledge and skills that we fail to appreciate. Please name your terms. Anything you want. Before Jake could respond, another signal came through. Senator Zelith appeared. On a second screen, her forearms moving frantically as she spoke. Ambassador Morrison, the Vorthan Republic formally apologizes for our past treatment of humanity. We offer you full membership in our government, equal representation in all decisions, and 50% of our trade profits. A third signal activated. Emperor Thorax of the Draknari Empire appeared, looking defeated despite his fearsome appearance. Human Morrison, the Draknari Empire recognizes humanity as our equals. We offer you our most advanced military technology and protection throughout the galaxy. More signals kept coming. Chancellor Yethis of the Aquilian Federation appeared, with his gills fluttering weakly. Please, he whispered, my people are dying. We will give you anything. Our water worlds, our technology, our loyalty forever. Even Queen Zara of the Crystalline Hive joined the desperate plea. Her crystal body flickered with dim light as she spoke. Humans are clearly the most intelligent species in the galaxy. We acknowledge your superiority. Please help us. Jake looked at all the alien leaders begging on his screens. These were the same beings who had laughed at humanity for 3 years. They had treated humans like children who didn't understand how the galaxy worked. Now they were offering to give humans everything they had previously denied. Your offers are interesting, Jake said slowly. But I'm afraid humanity has already made its decision. Dr. Amy Carter stepped forward. If I may, Ambassador, she said, I'd like to explain something to our former colleagues. Jake nodded, and Amy addressed the alien leaders. For 3 years you asked for my help fixing your systems. You always acted like you were doing me a favor by letting me work on your advanced technology. But the truth is your technology wasn't advanced at all. It was broken, inefficient, and poorly designed. The aliens listened in shocked silence as Amy continued. Every time I fixed your systems, I was actually rebuilding them from scratch using human engineering principles. Your ships, your stations, your networks, they all worked because humans made them work. Without us, you have nothing but expensive junk. Kelvox's voice was barely a whisper. We didn't know. You didn't want to know, Jake replied. You were so convinced of your own superiority that you never bothered to understand what humans actually contributed to your civilization. Captain Lisa Hayes checked her watch. Jake, we need to make the jump in 10 minutes. Jake nodded and turned back to the screen showing the desperate alien leaders. Prime Minister Kelvox, Senator Zelith, Emperor Thorax, and the rest of you. I want you to understand something. This isn't revenge. This is simply the consequence of your choices. He paused, letting his words sink in. For 3 years you told us we weren't good enough to be your partners. You treated us like servants while taking credit for our work. You laughed at our primitive ways while depending on our solutions to your problems. Jake's voice remained calm but firm. Today you've learned what your advanced civilization looks like without human involvement. You've discovered that all your impressive technology was only impressive because humans made it work. The alien leaders began speaking at once, making desperate promises and offers. Jake held up his hand for silence. Humanity has decided to build our own future among the stars, he announced. We will establish new colonies, develop new technologies, and create a civilization based on mutual respect rather than artificial hierarchy. He began shutting down the communication channels one by one. Perhaps someday, when we meet again in the galaxy, it will be as true equals. But that day is not today. The last screen went dark, leaving Jake alone with his human colleagues. Outside the windows, the final preparations for the jump were complete. All ships report ready, Captain Hayes announced. Jake took one last look at the stars they were leaving behind. Somewhere in that direction, alien civilizations were struggling to survive without human help. They would either learn to solve their own problems or face the consequences of their arrogance. Take us to our new home, Jake ordered. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the known galaxy behind. Behind them, the Galactic Council chamber sat empty and dark, its communication systems too broken to call them back. The galaxy had taught humanity a harsh lesson about power and respect. In return, humanity had taught the galaxy that sometimes the greatest strength comes from walking away with dignity rather than begging for acceptance from those who refuse to give it. The stars ahead held unlimited possibilities for a species that had finally learned its own worth.